Hello there everybody, this is Kristen. Welcome back to Crochet Witch Tarot. And we are back with the next Garden Arcana. I am very behind because last week we had a lot of low air quality warnings. I think that's how you would say that, because of the wildfires in Canada. So, hoping all my Canadian friends are doing alright, but it wasn't too safe to be outside for long periods of time last week, so I didn't get to do one of these last week. That being said, we are moving on to the Chariot, Strength, and the Hermit, and I'm very excited for this week. I feel like I actually somewhat had the easiest time kind of thinking of correlations this week. But without further ado, let's start off with the Chariot. Now, the Rose Oracle archetype I picked for this was the Knight, which is the Duke of Edinburgh Rose, which is an old garden rose. Isn't that card so pretty? But I wanted to choose the Knight because, what are all the Knights related to in the Major Arcana? Is it the Chariot? No, the Magician? Uh-oh, I don't remember. But to me, the Knights have a very Chariot-like energy. So maybe that's just me making that connection from somewhere deep in my brain and remembering, or who knows. So I chose the Knight because the Knights in the minor arcanas, to me, I see them a lot of times as this very fast-paced, kind of impulsive energy, and I do think that's an aspect of the Chariot card. Now, the other way I really like to read the Chariot is kind of grabbing the reins of a situation, being in control of your direction. There is this sort of like fast-paced motion to it, to me still, but I can also see it as having this sense of control or lack thereof, you know, if you're reading it in reversed. So the other cards I wanted to show, this is from the Tarot Grand Luxe by Tira Marchetti. I love that image of the Chariot. So this to me really, you can see kind of that wild energy the horses has, and the charioteer kind of reining them in and guiding them in the direction that he wants to go. Now I also have this from the Tarot of Angels, which kind of has that same sort of energy, but a bit more calm. And so, while this one to me does still have that same meaning of sort of reining it in, I also think, to me, this one has, again, this more relaxed feeling to it, more focused on that pushing forward movement, really, I think is a big aspect of the Chariot. So, that being said, let's go around the garden and see where we can find that Chariot energy. Okay, so I first wanted to start here. We are right now at the edge of what is very much our dying grass. And the new clover we planted over here that we do need to mix with something else. Haven't quite decided what, but the clover is growing beautifully. But all along the edge here, we have what is either going to be a bunch of daisies, or I think they're going to be sunflowers. And why this has this Chariot energy to me is because, and why I think they're going to be sunflowers, so we have this whole line of them, is because right there is where all winter long I had the bird feeder, and the birds we get really love sunflower seeds. I also particularly love feeding sunflowers to the squirrels on their little table over there. And so all over here was tons and tons of sunflower seed, just shrapnel basically. And so this has this Chariot energy to me because I'm thinking that we have these, what I'm thinking are sunflowers growing here because of the birdseed, which is so cool and really has that energy of just spreading, like I think we can see with that Chariot energy. So, sunflowers, I think. I don't know. If you know more, let me know. But I think these are just starting out sunflowers. I'm hoping. That'd be very cool. Alright, and the other thing I wanted to show for that Chariot energy is I have a bunch of these Morning Glories moonflowers growing. This one and this one. This one's growing a lot better than that one. I don't really know why. Anyway, those are moonflowers. This is a dark really deep kind of reddish purple morning glory. And then I think we've got some random, yeah, I put some seeds in as well. This is a little milkweed. Are we surprised? So we've got one growing there, oh yeah, and a little tiny one here. But this really speaks to that chariot energy for me because it's a vining plant. And so I haven't even touched this, and it is just naturally pushing forward and weaving itself through this, what do you call that? Trellis trellis I have here, which actually I might guide this one a little bit more because no, you know, we're gonna let it do its thing. And so it really has that, or shows that energy of just guiding its own way forward, pushing forward, and just this traveling energy. So I really think that these morning glories and moonflowers in the way that they kind of just vine like this really show that energy well. Actually, speaking of vines too, you can see here I've got a lot of random netting going on because unexpectedly growing all up this one shrub we have are these, I think there are raspberry, blackberry brambles growing kind of from underneath. But then as you can see all up it, this shape of leaf right here is all wild grape. It goes all the way up there, completely taking over this one bush, which I am okay with because the bush underneath is wild, oh, I'm never gonna say it right, Euonymus. It's pretty invasive here, so I'm not a huge fan of those, but haven't gotten there yet. But overtaking this one is all of this grapevine, and you can see we've got some grapes growing. How cool is that? And we're getting these grapevines everywhere popping up. So you can see we've got one trailing down here. We've got some new ones coming up kind of randomly in the garden. Let's see if I can find one easily. Now where did it go? I know I saw it. I think it was this way, along this side of the yard. Oh yes, okay. We've got a bunch of them popping up just kind of in the middle of the dirt here. I think I'm gonna try and transfer them if that's something that is possible without killing them. Because I'd love to keep it and maybe have it on like a more, you know, purposeful trellis or something, but I gotta get another trellis to do that. But yeah, I mean, that really has that spreading, climbing energy too of the chariot to me. Moving on now to strength, and the archetype I picked for this is the Challenger, which is a wild rose called the Scotch Rose. And I really think that's encapsulates a bit of the way I see the strength card, calling it the Challenger, because I do think what we see depicted on that card with the, usually it's someone overtaking a lion. Let's see what we have here. Oh, I actually picked some pretty gentle depictions, which I tend to enjoy. So we'll start with the Tarot of Angels. We have this angel here kind of stroking the lion's head, but there is this energy here in this one as well. I love this strength card. Isn't that beautiful? Of being challenged by our own lions, per se. You could see it as shadows or however the heck you want to see it. But I like seeing the strength card as overcoming those shadows, but more in a way that we have the strength to accept all parts of ourselves. I think that is not an easy feat. And of course, you know, when strength comes up, we can see it as physical strength. I do think, you know, there's a time and place for that interpretation, but I really like seeing it as this energy of overcoming and accepting and uniting almost. And I think this is from the Fairy Tarot. I love this depiction of the fairy just kind of sleeping on top of this. I don't know if that's really a lion there, but maybe it is. And the gentleness shown there and just the trust, I find really interesting. I don't tend to love images of strength where you see the person really battling this lion or like gruesomely overtaking it. I don't know if that's always the point of it to me. I think there is something to be said for kind of nurturing those things we find hard in ourselves or even externally, and finding room to show kindness to it. So, to me, it really has that overall overcoming energy. So, let's find it in the garden. Right, so we are going to start here. This is, it's got many names. Rose of Sharon. It's kind of a hibiscus rose. I've heard it called mallow rose, but I realize it's a little twig right now. But this I got from one of my coworkers' gardens last year, and it really truly was just an even smaller twig, and I planted it here, and this thing has overcome all of the odds. To start, I mean, this is, and still is, but even more so, is full of just weeds before we kind of got some work done on it. So last year my mom was helping me to try and start pull some of those, and she yanked this guy out of the ground totally by accident, and it really did look like a weed, to be fair. So she yanked it out of the ground after it had been there for a bit, so I replanted it just to see what would happen, and you can see it's got these really good, even above ground roots. I don't know, it's really, it's doing well. All of these leaves are completely new this year. But beyond that, it also, you can see the dead leaves here. That was all poison ivy, starting there and wrapping around this, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a bush, branch, this one branch. And so, obviously poison ivy is not ideal. I had to get rid of it, especially if, you know, my parents come visiting, they are highly allergic to it, so it couldn't stay. And so I had to get a spray to spray down the poison ivy to kill it, really. It was just the only option. And so this really got in the crossfire of that, and I thought for sure this is not gonna make it. I mean, it's getting, you know, basically poison put on it, which I don't usually like to use, but when it comes to poison ivy, it just, you can't mess with that. And it completely survived it. It overcame this interesting, like, symbol, I feel like, of how sometimes those shadows can really feel all-consuming, because the bottom of it was completely wrapped with poison ivy, and the poison ivy is gone now, and this has just flourished since then. So I think that's a really cool depiction of strength here. Okay, so two other examples I want to show are actually right next to each other here, but we'll start with, oh my gosh, more milkweed. Hello. This was my Coreopsis plant, which very randomly got completely just, it was like probably this high before, beautiful flowers, it was fully flowering, hadn't been touched for weeks, and then all of a sudden we got some baby deer friends, and they just came and chomped the whole thing down, like down to just little sticks. All the leaves were gone. I thought it was a goner. But this plant overcame, and all of these leaves are new. It just has so much new growth on it, and you could see it's even got some tiny buds, which I'm so excited about, because it was one of the most consistent flowers I had out here, aside from these over here, which, are those not so beautiful? And I was really sad to see them gone, because they would have flowered all summer long, and I think there's still hope to see more of that this year, which I'm so excited about, because I really didn't think at that point it had lost so many leaves. It was just completely mowed down, that I didn't think it was going to really bounce back, and it entirely has. Same thing to be said for my rose bush over here. I'm sure I've mentioned it, but this immediately got completely eaten by most likely deer and squirrels, and all of these leaves are brand new. I think we've got some buds on it. So exciting. So there's some hope to see some flowers from this that I really didn't think there would. It completely overcame that adversity in a way, and is showing, like, completely showing its resilience, which is just so cool. So let's move on now to the Hermit. Okay, last but not least, we have the Hermit, and for that I picked out the Loner, which is a wild rose again, and it is the red leaf rose. So I really think that archetype of the loner really encapsulates the hermit, because to me I see the hermit card as one of really taking time to be by yourself, really separate yourself out, kind of go into that cocoon mode to really just sort of take stock of what's going on around you. Do you like the direction you're headed in? You know, do you like what's going on, or is there something that really needs to shift, and how are you going to do that? You know, it's this time for all this self-thought, and I think really doing so alone so that you can avoid having so much outside input, so many voices in on what, you know, you personally should be doing. So let's see, I kind of just really like these depictions. I brought it again. This is the Tarot of Angels. I love that classic hermit with the lantern, because it's kind of like keeping this light lit up, I guess you could say, just for yourself, just for your own seeking. I love this from the Fairy Tarot. Among the trees. Really letting yourself be your own guide, finding the way on your own, I think is really just important. Sometimes, you know, as good as it is to get external advice and guidance, I think there's a lot to be said for finding that within ourselves when it comes to our own directions we want to go. So, I don't exactly have a plan yet for what we're going to find here in the garden that represents the hermit to me, but I know there's something. We're going to find something. Okay, we are over here by my wood poppy, which does have some beautiful blooms on it. But what really drew my attention is these big buds that we get before the flowers open, and they're like these little, don't they look like little lanterns? Especially as it's opening up. Let's see if I can zoom in on this one. It really looks like a little lantern there, and I love how fuzzy they are. But they're really just kind of, any sort of bud, I feel like, is going to represent that gestation period, that sort of growth that happens in little cocoons of isolation. But I also love that these look like little lantern lights hanging down here. Ooh, can we focus? There we go. So cool. Right, and last but not least, let's get my shadow out of the way. We've got what was called the Dark Lord Rhododendron. It had these beautiful dark purple flowers on it, which, as you can see, have since died away. Their season is over, but I feel like this really represents that hermit energy in the way of letting that kind of showiness and kind of, you know, how we show ourselves to the external world die away for a bit so that there can be necessary growth. Because as you can see, as soon as those flowers died, I started getting new little branches here, new leaves, so which I'm pretty sure generally only happens once the flowers start to go away, because they can focus, the plant can focus its energy on growing new branches, new leaves, which I think is a really cool representation of that hermit energy. And I think the last thing I had to show you today. So I hope you enjoyed this installment. I'll be back again soon with the next one, and I hope you're having a great beginning of the week. I'll see you very soon.